pictures from inside the cabin of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. 3 taikonauts have moved into position, waiting for the liftoff, expected to happen in just over an hour's time. Their destination? China's own space station, which is due to be completed by the end of this year. Hello everyone, you're back watching our special coverage of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft launch. It's part of China's efforts to build its own space station by the end of this year. The 3 taikonauts will head to the core module of China's space station, known as Tianhe. They will meet up with the Shenzhou 14 crew for the first crew handover on the space station. CGTN will also broadcast the Shenzhou 15 launch live on our French, Spanish, Russian, and Arabic channels, as well as China Radio International. Our new media platform will also live stream this event. Make sure you stay with us. I'm Zhong Shi. I have Professor Yang Jiuquan of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation in the studio. Professor, welcome to our program. And first, let's take a look back at the highlights before the 3 taikonauts entered into the capsule. Let's check in with CGTN reporter Zheng Yibing, who is very near the Jiuquan launch site in Gansu province. Yibing, good evening to you. It seems all is going fine. The 3 taikonauts have moved into position. We're about an hour from the liftoff time. What is happening right now? What remains to be done in this window?
Well, yes, Zhongshi, good to hear you and Professor Yang Jiuquan. Now, this is almost 1 hour countdown to the launch mission of the Shenzhou 15 manned spacecraft with the 3 Chinese taikonauts aboard. And 10 minutes ago, the launch system has finished the pressurized process for the propellant system. This marks another big step for the ignition stage. Well, we look at the launch pad now. The revolving platforms are about to open in just a few minutes to come. The launch pad is the earliest and the only manned mission pad in China now. It's about 100 meters tall with a main structure reaching about 75 meters and circling around the 58.3 meter tall Long March 2 FKR rocket is a revolving platforms. These are the 4 levels. They're about to open one by one in the coming half an hour. And we heard from the command center, the top level will firstly open and then come the others. Some half an hour ahead of the ignition, they were completely open. And the flight combination of the Shenzhou 15 manned spaceship and the Long March 2 FKR rocket will get the final preparation. Now the taikonauts are inside the spaceship and everything goes on well. And the people inside the launch center are gathering for that moment. Not far away from me, there's this big square. People are beginning to go there. And beside me, there are the very big cameras. So just to through this platform, we can see the very detailed footage of this launch process. So that's the current situation. Back to you now.
Yibing, appreciate that timely update from you. Do keep us posted there. Thank you so much. The process of building the China space station has required a series of technological advances. Let's take a look at 6 of them.
Technology for recycling and environmental control are essential for the crew's survival. The space station's life support system can remove toxic gases, treat waste, and regenerate oxygen to breathe. The system drastically cuts the need for supply deliveries. An automatic temperature control system also ensures comfort on board and protects delicate devices. Electricity is also essential for operating the space station and for scientific experiments. The station has foldable solar panels less than 1 mm thick. The panels are half the weight per unit of area than a standard solar array on Earth, but produce double the electricity. Robotic arms help with key tasks, including spacewalks and manipulating cargo craft. The space station's chief architect Yang Hong says they outperformed expectations in positioning accuracy and capacity for motion and load carrying. The flight control system is completely Chinese built. The technology includes automated planning and scheduling, orbit determination, and forecasts. It also makes fast docking and remote control of the robotic arms possible. Inside the station, there are applications to improve Earth-space communication and coordination. Few scientists have the chance to do lab experiments in space, and sometimes astronauts would like a bit of help. That's been made possible by remote control technology with a signal delay of 2 seconds, a record for China. The Chinese space program's chief engineer, Sun Jun, says tracking and data relay satellites have made effective and accurate monitoring possible. He says an emergency launch, escape, and search and rescue mechanisms are in place to ensure the safety of the crew.
We're now about 1 hour from the liftoff. Let's talk about everything with Professor Yang Yuguan joining me here in the studio. Professor, can you help us understand what's going to happen in this 1 hour window before liftoff? A reporter talked about the gradual opening of the platforms there at the launch tower. How does that happen?
Just before this live coverage, during the last live coverage, you may heard that there are voice of the flight control center of the launch center, and also at this moment we can also hear the voice.
And I think the platform is now gradually opening.
This, as Yibing has mentioned, this is the top floor of the top rotational platform, and you know that to open it first means that we must expose the emergency escape system, and at a certain point, you know that the emergency escape software inside the carrier rocket will be valid. At this moment, if anything wrong happened to the launch vehicle, we can ignite the emergency escape tower and separate the Shenzhou spaceship from the launch vehicle. And with the parachute, we have a safe landing of the astronauts.
Now, with this top floor platform opening up, we can now finally see that carrier rocket, the Long March 2F carrier rocket, that's going to carry the 3 taikonauts into space.
And what you see is the top, is the emergency escape top. Actually speaking, it is made of several solid rocket engines. And some of the rocket engines will use to pull the whole Shenzhou spaceship, actually speaking the orbital module and the re-entry capsule from the propulsion module, and then to a distance far from the launch vehicle. And some of the smaller rocket engines will be used to change its direction, to get it away from the path of the launch vehicle. So it is specially designed solid rocket motors. And just below this will be the payload fairing. The shape of this payload fairing is follows what we call a Kalman curve. The with a common curve payload fairing, it will have the minimum drag to save the energy, and also the vibration during the flight caused by the aerodynamic forces will be not so intensive. So there are multiple advantages use this common curve shaped payload fairing.
And on the upper right corner, we can see the countdown time. Now it's just over 57 minutes till liftoff. Mr. Xu Yansong is also joining me via Skype here. Mr. Xu, we were just talking about what's happening in this 1 hour window before liftoff. Of course, we're waiting with breath that is bated for that moment to happen, knowing how important this mission is. This is the last manned crew before the official completion of China's own space station, which is slated for the end of this year. Can you shed light, Mr. Xu, on what is happening in this 1 hour window of time?
They prepared the unlocking of all the systems. As you have seen that the hatches of the capsule as well as the service module and the fairing has been closed, so that the opening of the top hatch means that the activation of the escape tower. So that is also unlocked in case of emergency. In the coming minutes, 35 minutes before the ignition, we will see a series of opening of the hatch, and the last one will happen 15 minutes before because of the cold weather, extreme weather conditions, and the cold temperature. The rocket system, including some of the batteries and chips, needs to be maintained in thermal conditions. So they delay somehow the opening of the lower hatch. And then there's also the disconnection of the ground power to the rocket power. The rocket will have its own battery running just 1 minute before the ignition. So at this time, 1 hour from the launch, still the rocket itself and the capsule are powered by the ground power.
Mr. Xu, we just saw the 3 taikonauts seated in the capsule holding manuals like they're cramming for the exam in the very last minute. It always cracks me up when I see them holding that manuals, thinking what they're doing, reading the manuals in this, countdown to ignition. Can you also help us understand what they are doing in this time? Because it does seem like they're just sitting there and their colleagues on the ground are doing the final preparatory work. Is that true? Is there something that the taikonauts themselves are busy doing in this time?
Well, you are right that they have a menu in their hand, and also all the indicators of different systems in the capsule. So they're looking at the indicators, some of the sensors, so that they make sure that all the procedures are following to the right normality. Because if there is an abnormal in the capsule, they will have to report also to the control center. As you have correctly pointed out, that the launching itself, including the whole entering into space, is controlled on the ground segment. And also there is an injection of the command just 15 minutes before the launch, so that the injection of the tasking command would decide on the final launching time. We will call the route parameter, which is very important for the orbiting insertion and including the rendezvous and docking. So all the maneuvers and the later calculation is based on these route parameters. So all of these are happening within the hour, and also the manual is important to cross-check with the ground crew that the capsule, including the rocket conditions, are in good shape, so that they have the double check with the astronauts, including the ground segment.
Yeah, we just see on the screen what the ground staff are up to, something that they're doing in this last hour window. They're calling it a second comprehensive checkup. I assume that means, Professor Yang, help me out here, that they're checking up all the systems and they're monitoring everything to make sure that there's no malfunction, everything's working smoothly.
As you and Yansong has already discussed, you know that there is a handbook in the hands of Mr. Fei Junlong. You know that this is not only there are instructions of the normal procedure, but also include those of something wrong in emergencies, how they can do and what they should do. So just in these handbooks. And also, you know that during the whole process, as you mentioned, the comprehensive checking, the second one, you know that there are multiple systems. I have mentioned the launch site system, the rocket system, the Shenzhou spaceship system, the astronaut system, and also the TT&C, all the telemetry, telecontrol, and the communication system. And very interesting, you know that although this is a launch, but the landing site system will also attend this launch. You know, that's because the rescue team belongs to the landing site system. But for any abnormal cases, if an emergency escape happened, so probably the astronauts will land on somewhere along its trajectory. So if this happens, the rescue team will try to find them as soon as possible. So also the status of the rescue team must be confirmed by the commander of the flight control. So this is also critical, all kinds of measures to ensure the safety of our astronaut. And you may heard that just several minutes before the ground control, the commander, you will call this the Commander Zero. Commander Zero, he has asked every ground station to report their status.
Right.
So that is also a very necessary step for all these, we call this a big system to check, and also to for this kind of, if anything wrong happened, he has the right to stop the whole procedure.
And we will keep hearing from all of those tracking units after the liftoff as well to make sure that things are going smoothly. Mr. Xu, one more question for you. Can you also talk to us about how the taikonauts selected for this mission have trained for this moment? I mean, one of them is a veteran, but he hasn't flown in 17 years' time. Mr. Deng, the other one, who was also one of the first generation astronauts, he waited over 2 decades for his first manned flight. You know, people were saying, could they have been rusty in their skills? But Professor Yang explained to me in the last hour that they have been continuously training for today. Talk to us, Mr. Xu, about how they trained.
Mr. Deng has been famous for a backup plan. He has been a backup astronaut for a couple of previous missions. So we know that they have been intensively trained, and also they're on the edge and ready to be flown to the outer space. Mr. Fei Junlong is the second mission of the manned mission. Of course, you know Shenzhou 5 is the first Yang launched and land safely to be the first astronauts, and Shenzhou 6 is where Mr. Fei has been flown. So these are, you know, a good combination of a 25-year trainee and also a veteran, including also a newcomer that also came 12 years after training. So all of this training has been very intensive, and also the astronauts are separated by generations. The first group and the second group, they are more or less independent, but their training contents are same. They keep good shape at all times, and also Mr. Fei has been a managerial role in some times. Mr. Fei Junlong has been a key player in the selection of new astronauts. So all of these are coming back to one mission. Is very important because they have already trained and backed up and flown. So this is a good combination to be flying on the Shenzhou 15.
A combination that demonstrates China's technological advances, as Professor Yang pointed out in the last hour, and also more confidence in a new combination, a new configuration of 1 veteran plus 2 newcomers. Mr. Xu, thank you so much for your analysis. And let's continue our discussion with Professor Yang Yuguang here in the studio. This is a very competitive business, although we've had generations of Chinese astronauts under training. It's so difficult to make it to your actual first flight. Help us understand how the first and second generation of Chinese astronauts trained, and how different are they? Are we talking about a next generation also at this point?
You know that the first generation of our astronaut have 14 members, and the team was formed in 1998. And also they were trained in some of them were trained also in Russia, our cooperation with Russia in Moscow. But you know that at the moment the most difficult thing is that we don't have much experience in what criteria we should choose for the training, and also what kind of courses they should have during their training. So just we conducted so many testing to do this, and today we've already very be practical. And even you know that, as you already asked, when we choose the second batch, we've already conducted several flight missions. So at this moment we are more experienced, and at this moment we already know how to choose them and what criteria we should choose, and also for a certain mission it has already been much better than before. So that is the difference. And moreover, you see that another very important thing is we choose the second generation, including 2 female astronauts, Ms. Liu Yang and Ms. Wang Yaping. And you know that the difference is that all the male astronauts, including those from the first batch and the second batch, were chosen from the fighter pilots. But for the female astronauts, you know that Ms. Liu Yang and Ms. Wang Yaping, they are freighter pilots. Because at that moment we don't have much female fighter pilots, but still they are well qualified and very, you know that this already been the Shenzhou 14 is the second mission of Ms. Liu Yang. So Ms. Liu Yang and Ms. Wang Yaping are very great, outstanding astronauts, even among all these astronauts. So that's a great difference. But you know that in the future, as we've already discussed, this time we have 1 veteran and 2 newcomers, this configuration. In the future, according to the announcement of the China Manned Space Agency, next year, probably we will have the astronauts conducting the next missions chosen from the third group. And you know, today we have 18 members during the third group. 7 of them were pilots. 7 of them were flight engineers, and 4 of them are payload experts. So this is time, you know, that it is more different from the first and the second batch. We can recognize all the members from the first and second batch are pilots. Well, you know that at this time, the third batch, not all of them are pilots from the Air Force. Some of them are scientists and engineers, I mean the 4 payload experts. So this time, this is because with the completion of the construction of our station, we need more professional staff to conducting the scientific research in our space station. And it is the right moment for China to choose the astronauts from the scientists or the engineers. So this is quite different. And moreover, among these 18 members of the third group, there were also 1 female astronaut.
Increasingly diverse backgrounds, obviously,
Exactly.
which also opens up our imagination when we consider who will be sent into the China Space Station in the future. Could there even be commercial flights that just ordinary people could be passengers? That's really that's a possibility. But hold that thought, Professor Yang. I'll be coming back to you in just a few moments' time. Earlier, Fei Junlong, Deng Qingming, and Zhang Lu talked to the press at a news conference at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China. Veteran taikonauts Fei Junlong will be the mission commander. Take a listen.
On behalf of the Shenzhou 15 crew, we express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone. I was on a Shenzhou 16 17 years ago. Now, this time, we're going to China's space station. We're so excited and we're full of pride. For the 6-month mission, we have more experiments and assignments lined up, including some more difficult extravehicular activities, but we're fully prepared and trained for all tasks. We're fully confident of completing our tasks, and we believe the Chinese people will leave more footprints in space. We're ready.
The Shenzhou 15 is scheduled for liftoff today at 11:08 p.m. Beijing time. The 3 crew members will meet up with the waiting Shenzhou 14 crew and perform the first handover at the space station.
神舟15号乘组战友们，我们已经等了很久这一刻。
天上宫阙带君来，我们等你们哟。
与你们的相遇 也意味着我们马上就要返回。真希望和你们一起并肩战斗，但是我们的心会和你们始终在一起。欢迎你们！欢迎！
A message of welcome from the Shenzhou 14 crew that is currently on the China space station. Now, with the launch of the Shenzhou 15 mission, China's Tiangong space station will have 3 main modules alongside 3 spaceships. CJTN's Wu Lei gives us an immersive tour within China's space station, exploring some of its unique characteristics.
Tens of thousands of satellites and spacecraft are now orbiting some 400 kilometers above Earth's surface. Among them is a large manned spacecraft that might catch your eye. It's the Tiangong China Space Station. The Tiangong orbits the Earth at a speed about 7.8 kilometers per second. It takes about 90 minutes to complete one full orbit. Taikonauts can even see 16 sunrises a day from the station. This brand new China National Space Laboratory mainly consists of the Tianhe Core Module, Wentian and Mengtian Lab modules, which together form the iconic T-shaped structure. Together with the Shenzhou manned spacecraft and Tianzhou cargo ship, the whole space station weighs almost 100 tons. So how was this state-of-the-art space station put together? Let's check it out. Starting with the launch of the Tianhe Core module in April 2021, China has planned 11 missions to complete the construction of the space station, including 3 major modules, 4 Shenzhou spacecrafts, and 4 Tianzhou cargo ships. So at this site, and having floated through space for so long, how is the Tiangong maintaining power? The answer to that comes down to these 2 pairs of flexible solar arrays, which generate 80% of the entire space station's electricity. They have special huge driving devices, wrist-like bearing units, to help rotate these 2 solar arrays 360 degrees to face the sunlight in unblocked positions. Each pair has a total length of around 55 meters. Space engineers say these 4 big solar winds generate nearly 1,000 kilowatt-hour of electricity per day, which is equivalent to the electricity consumption of an ordinary family for nearly half a year. By the way, the thing crawling outside the Tiangong space station right now is a robotic arm. It has 7 adjustable levels, just as flexible as a human's arm. Now, taikonauts can stand on the robotic arm and move around quickly. This enables them to be a lot more efficient during the installation work or maintenance tasks. Alright, let's take a look inside the space station now. Coming in, you can see how bright and spacious this place is. It's a large space of 110 cubic meters, with so many rooms, so don't get lost. This is the Tianhe Core module, the main living space for astronauts. There are 3 different sleeping areas where you can lie down and sleep. Actually, there are another 3 sleeping areas in Wentian Lab module, which will support up to 6 taikonauts on board. There are over 120 kinds of food here, so taikonauts will have a different menu every day. Alright, dinner is over, time for exercise. We have a running machine or a bicycle, the choice is yours. Scientists developed a special recycling system to support life in space. The system can collect moisture, volatilized water, and carbon dioxide released by the taikonauts. Even their urine is processed. All of that is done through subsystems such as electrolytic oxygen production, drinking water collection and treatment, urine treatment, and carbon dioxide and harmful gas removal. Can you imagine? Within just a year, the system has recycled over 2,600 kilograms of water. That's a sufficient amount of water for a person to drink over a span of 2 years. Now we can't forget our daily necessities, the internet. On China's space station, taikonauts can now use a mobile app to control the lights, just like this, and inquire about the storage and supply of the materials. And if you miss your family or friends back on Earth, you can make phone calls, chat through video calls, send and receive emails. Now let's take a closer look at the lab modules. The Wentian Lab is mainly for the scientific research of life in space, including the growth and development of different types of plants, animals, and microorganisms. For example, here is a key experimental cabinet called Universal Biological Cultivation Module, where the rice and Arabidopsis are planted. In fact, Chinese taikonauts and students on the ground carried out an experiment in which the same seed was planted. The seeds grow under different gravity conditions, enabling them to study the mechanisms of growth. The Mengtian is mainly for the scientific research of microgravity. In addition to the 13 cabinets inside Mengtian, there are also 37 payload positions outside the cabin. There's a special piece of equipment in the Mengtian Lab module for releasing micro spacecraft. With the help of astronauts, the payload transfer tool, and the robotic arm, the equipment will eject small satellites weighing about 100 kilograms into orbit.
The chief designer of the taikonaut system of China Manned Space Program, Huang Weifen, gave a one-on-one interview to CGTN reporter Deng Qingming. She praised the professionals and the professionalism and dedication of the 3 Shenzhou 15 mission crew members.
The 3 Shenzhou 15 crew members have gone through arduous training on the ground. They coordinated during that period and got familiar with each other. They share the same hobbies and common interests, so they can get on with one another while in orbit. I think the 3 taikonauts have great professionalism and dedication to their jobs. For Commander Fei Junlong, this will be his second journey to space since his previous mission 17 years ago. He always trains hard and sets very high standards. Deng Qingming was one of the first cohorts of China's taikonauts and has held his position for close to 25 years. Although he missed out on previous space voyages, he never gave up. The Shenzhou 15 mission is the realization of his dream, which is inspiring to many. When I heard him answering questions from journalists, I could not hold back my tears. I feel very proud of him. Zhang Lu belongs to the second cohort. It's great for him to realize his dream after 12 years of perseverance and hard work. These 3 taikonauts are so inspiring and possess great professionalism and dedication.
The Shenzhou 14 and 15 crews will be in orbit at the same time. What are the missions for the 6 taikonauts?
The handover period for the 2 crews is 5 days. Before its completion, the Shenzhou 14 crew is responsible for the duties at the space station. And then it's the turn of the Shenzhou 15 crew. The former will introduce and guide the latter, helping them to adjust to the environment. Then the former will return to the Earth and the latter will assist them during the process. Such coordination was rehearsed on the ground. And we arranged the space and ground communication via audio and video. The Shenzhou 14 crew also shared their experiences and offered support. This time, the Shenzhou 15 crew has prepared gifts for their departing peers. I believe they will have a great time together during the handover.
Let's continue our discussions in the studio with Professor Yang Yuguang. I really enjoyed that immersive tour given by my colleague Wu Lei just now, which really gives us an insider look into the functioning modules of the China space station. This is what's going to happen, as we know. The liftoff is half an hour away, and in a handful of hours, the Shenzhou 15 crew members will be meeting their Shenzhou 14 peers. And when that happens, there will be 6 people on board the China space station. And also, it will be a 3-module and 3 spaceship configuration, weighing close to 100 tons. And that will be quite incredible. So the 6 of them will co-work in that confined space for about 5 days, as we just heard from the chief designer there. Will that be a rather crowded time for all of them? Or because the maximum capacity is 6 people, and now the 6 people will have to co-work and co-live for 5 days?
Not very crowded. You see that, you know, that in the initial stage of the International Space Station, the living quarter is located in the Zvezda module made by Russia. But in this module, there are only 2 sleeping chambers, and there are 3 crew members. So if they want to speak at the same moment, there is no one, there is no sleeping chambers. But for the China's Tiangong space station, you know, there are 3 sleeping chambers located in the Tianhe 1 core module. But there are also another 3 sleeping chambers located in the Wentian module. And also we have 2 toilets. So it is not so crowded for the 6 people. And you know that their daily work is based on Beijing time. And so at the moment for sleeping, there are private sectors for each crew members. So they are not very crowded. But indeed, they will be really, really busy. As we've already discussed, there are so many works to be handed over. And also, not only those are for the scientific research, but also the operations, the normal operation of the daily work of the space station. And now you can see that this is the launch complex, and as we've already discussed, the first or the top rotational platform has already been opened. And then, as Yibing has already mentioned,
and just a quick reminder, we're now half an hour from that liftoff.
Exactly. But as you mentioned, their meeting will be a historical moment. But actually speaking, just 40 minutes. Okay,
yes,
T-minus 30 minutes and
yes,
counting.
T-minus 30 minutes. We just heard from ground control and command.
But actually speaking, just 40 minutes later, we will have 6 astronauts. We will have 6 Chinese astronauts in orbit, because the flight of the Long March 2F is about 10 minutes.
Yes. 10 very exciting moments. We will bring you full coverage of the ignition, liftoff, and of course, the rocket going into orbit there. So make sure you stay with us right here on CGTN. I mean, what we will also witness is the 3-module, 3 spaceship configuration, which doesn't happen very often, especially when the Shenzhou 14 crew members return to Earth. I mean, this is really the largest configuration of the China space station.
Yes. But you should also notice that just before the technology verification phase, we only have the experience to combine 2 spacecraft together. During the Tiangong 1 mission with the Shenzhou 8, 9, and 10 manned spacecraft, and also the Tiangong 2 space laboratory with Shenzhou 11 and the Tianzhou 1 cargo spacecraft.
I think we're seeing more of that platform opening. And
yes.
CGTN reporter Zheng Yibing is watching all of this for us just near the launch site. He joins me now with an update. Yibing, what do you have for us? We just heard from ground command and control that is 30 minutes, not even 30 minutes until liftoff. What is happening right now?
Hello, Zhongshi. Well, let me update the situation here. Well, actually, we just heard from the command center that the command sequence has handed over to the zero commander. That means we have entered the final phase of the launch sequence. Now, many people have gathered in this area some 1.5 kilometers away from the launch pad and waiting for the moment of liftoff of the Long March 2 FKR rocket with Shenzhou 15 spacecraft on top of it as a payload. Tonight, the temperature here at the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center is really low. Now the temperature has dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius, but the weather condition is pretty good according to the meteorologist. And the wind speed now is only 3 meters per second, and the temperature is about that. But half an hour after the first level of the resolving platform circling around the flat combination, they opened, and the other two gradually opened, and then 5 minutes later, the last of the 4 levels will also open. This is the same with the launch sequence of the Shenzhou 14 in June. At that time, I was at the live shot spot just 150 meters away from the launch pad and was ready to retreat from that area to where I'm standing now. This is the first time I see manned launch mission at night. And when I think of the 3 taikonauts inside the capsule, I feel it really amazing because they're about to take off and headed to the China space station and meet the 3 Shenzhou 14 crew members. And it's the first time that 6 taikonauts will be in the orbit at the same time and in the Tiangong space station at the same time for 5 days. It's a milestone for completing the construction of China's space station very soon. So everybody now is excited. Everybody is waiting to see that moment. Back to you.
It's incredible to think that all that meet and greet will happen in a handful of hours. We will be watching with you CGTN's Deng Qingming live near the launch site in Jiuquan, Gansu Province. Thank you so much. And for more perspectives on international cooperation in space, let me bring my guest, Mani Shankar Prasad, director of the Amity Institute of Space Science and Technology under Amity University in New Delhi. Sir, thank you so much for joining us today on our special program. China's space station is expected to be completed by the end of this year. What kind of international cooperation do you expect? Mr. Prasad, do I have you with me here?
Yeah, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good day to you. I was wondering about your perspectives on possible international cooperation. On the completed China space station, the completion is slated by the end of the year.
Yep.
What does international cooperation look like when that space station is complete, sir?
Yeah, that you see, the space station with China is going to put it in 2022. There is a large number of people who are international people are interested in this. You see, you must have heard that Italian space agency has already signed an agreement to become a member of this and do some scientific experiments. Also, United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs is actively involved in this affair of International Space Station of China. India also is interested in doing some of the experiments with the colleagues in China. So it's a large number of people are going to, best part in China space station and space endeavor is that we are not only looking for developed countries, but you are also giving an opportunity to, developing countries who can become a part of a space faring or a space race. That's we expect a large number of cooperation of such type of countries in the endeavor of Chinese space station.
I mean, with the International Space Station, we've seen close cooperation among astronauts from various countries. China hasn't exactly ruled out that possibility, which means that foreign astronauts could possibly join their Chinese counterparts once China's own space station is completed. How important is international cooperation in the advancement of technologies, in the advancement of space programs?
See, India has got its own space program, but as well as cooperation goes, we have a tie-up. Like if you remember on your 15 experiments which China has selected containing fluid, fire, behavior, bio and astronomy. One of the experiments being conducted is a very large experiment with the Indo-Russian together. That's a nebular gas or map dust clouds. So we are going to cooperate and become a part of the International Space Station experiments, as well as getting into new scientific endeavor. It's not that we are going to keep it as a closed room discussion. We are going to certainly become a part of Chinese space station and try and see how our manned space mission also becomes successful through this. I hope this meets the answer.
Mr. Prasad, we certainly appreciate your time and your analysis. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Founded in 1951, the International Astronautical Federation is the world's leading space advocacy organization, comprising 468 members in 75 countries. With China's space station set to be fully completed by the end of 2022, what expectations does the IAF have for this new platform? CGTN's Wu Lei talked to the executive director of the IAF.
The Shenzhou 15 manned spacecraft will be launched by a Long March 2F rocket very soon. 3 more astronauts will join the 3 now on board China's Tiangong space station. So what's your assessment of China's manned space programs over the past decades?
I need to recall even the launch of Shenzhou 5 in October 2003, where actually for the first time China was launching its first astronaut, Mr. Yang Yiwei, to space, which I think the whole world was kind of really excited about. China became the 3rd country to be able to send humans to space after the Soviet Union and the United States. China is one of the leading countries in low Earth orbit, with having their own infrastructure, having all the systems in place to supply this platform. And now, of course, with Shenzhou 15, bringing the number of astronauts in the space station to 6, of course, is kind of giving the signal, well, it's ready, it's kind of built, it's ready to be used, it's ready to do the science on a full-fledged scale. And I think the whole world is actually watching.
After years of efforts, the China space station is scheduled for completion by the end of the year. What expectations does IAF have for it?
The expectation, of course, is that it may stay on low Earth orbit for a long time, operational, do all the science which China and the Chinese people are planning and expecting to implement there. And of course, the expectation is also that it will open up to become another international platform. We are always extremely happy to welcome our Chinese colleagues and specialists and high-level representatives to present these achievements to a global audience. We look forward to hearing again from our Chinese colleagues at our upcoming International Astronautical Congress in October next year in Baku in Azerbaijan.
Though in a national space laboratory, the China space station is open to global scientists. What opportunities do you see for other space agencies, astronauts, and engineers?
The opportunities are of course, countless, I would say. I mean, all the range of science you can do in low Earth orbit, important for knowledge and improvement of the situation on Earth, but also science to prepare for going further, doing the next step, going to the moon, maybe to Mars. And we see already that international cooperations are set up and international partners are going together doing joint scientific projects on the China space station. And this makes us very confident that this will still continue and even intensify in the coming years. And we from the International Astronautical Federation, we are really excited to monitor this, be part of it, and provide the platform to inform a global community of these achievements.
I want to talk about all of this with Professor Yang Yuguang here in the studio. Professor, before I pick your brain on international cooperation, I do want to go back a little bit to the criteria topic that you mentioned just now. Obviously, we're seeing increasingly diverse backgrounds of future astronauts here in China, so they don't have to be pilots, fighter jet pilots. They can be engineers. They can come from other backgrounds. But have we decided on what qualities are necessary, what criteria are must-haves for future astronauts?
For any astronauts, whether you are a pilot or a flight engineer or a payload expert, you must experience the liftoff and also the landing. So this is the most crucial environment the astronaut must facing. So their training, including their the G load or the overload training, and also the vibration training, adaptation, and also they must conduct the rescue training. You know that in an emergency case, the Shenzhou spaceship can land it anywhere, maybe a desert, maybe in the lake, or even in the sea. So they must be trained they can survive before the reach of the rescue team. So this is a very crucial and very tough training for the astronaut, no matter what role you are. So these astronauts, in the future, I believe also for the foreign astronauts, if in the future we plans to send them to our space station, they must also conduct these kind of trainings. Moreover, you see, a certain mission will be faced by certain kind of trainings. For instance, if they want to conduct the EVA, they must be trained in the water buoyancy pool or the underwater training. This is also really challenging for everyone. You know that it is even more tough than in the real microgravity environment if you are in the neutral buoyancy pool. So that is the reason why for all these astronauts, no matter he is a pilot or a payload expert, it is really challenging among these trainings.
How much time are we talking about here? How much time does it often take to groom a potential astronaut before he can be first a backup astronaut and then be selected on a real manned mission?
Usually, they should have a course of about 2 years. But for the certain missions, they will also be specially trained, and the enhanced training will be conducted. And also, finally, a formal crew and also a backup crew will be chosen. If anything wrong happened, for instance, such as
T-minus 15 minutes.
Great. So at this moment, you can see that all the rotational platform has already been opened. We can see the whole body of our Long March 2F.
Let's take this opportunity, Professor, and talk about
15 minutes countdown.
That Long March 2F rocket obviously consists of different parts. We have 4 boosters at the bottom of the rocket, and then we have the stage 1 and stage 2, and then the spacecraft.
Quite correct. The Long March 2F is a 2.5-stage rocket dedicated for launch payload into the low Earth orbit. The capability, if there are 2 versions of this Long March 2F, one for crewed missions and one for unmanned missions. For the crewed missions, the capability is more than 8.9 tons. And for unmanned missions, the capability is more than 8.6 tons. Because you know that for a crewed mission, we must have an emergency escape system. The shape is different. And for this, as I mentioned, this Long March 2F is the only human-rated launch vehicle of China, which means that the reliability of this launch vehicle is much higher than a common launch vehicle. The rudiment of this launch vehicle is Long March 2E. The maiden flight is in 1990, but after the establishment of our manned space program, there are so many improvements on the Long March 2E, and then finally we get this Long March 2F. At the initial stage, the reliability of this launch vehicle can reach to 0.97. It is already very high, but still not safe enough for our astronauts. We added a malfunction detection system on board this Long March 2F rocket. 0.97, the reliability means that for every 100 launch, maybe there are 3 times the rocket have some dangerous things happen. But you know that this is not safe enough for the astronauts. And then we added an emergency escape system to this launch vehicle. And with the help of this emergency escape system, the safety for the astronauts can reach to 0.997, which means for 1,000 launch, only 3 times, maybe the life of our astronauts will be threatened. So this is already safe enough. But still, for all these years, we have so many improvements on this launch vehicle, and the performance of the launch vehicle is also improved. The safety of this launch vehicle is also greatly improved. Moreover, you see that that the launch of the Long March 2F is to send the Shenzhou spacecraft to dock with the Tiangong space station. The basic requirement why we choose this moment to launch the rocket is because that only when the launch site rotates along with the Earth, when it passing through the orbital plane of our Tiangong space station, only at this moment we can launch it. The basic requirement is that the launch vehicle must send the spacecraft into the same orbital plane of our Tiangong. So that is the reason why we choose a 0 launch window. The accuracy of the liftoff moment must be less than 1 second. So this is the initial stage in about 2011 during the Shenzhou 8 mission. We achieved this 0 launch window. But in all these years, it is also continually improved because that we have some design margin, which means that the capability of the launch vehicle is stronger than required. So with this margin, we return the 0 launch window to a natural launch window, which means if there are anything error happened, we can use this capability to adjust, and then it can reach to the proper position and speed. So this is also an important improvement.
Understood, Professor. Thank you. I'll be back with you. The Long March 2F rocket is China's only launch vehicle for manned space missions. Compared with other rockets, Long March 2F has an additional escape tower. As Professor Yang was just explaining, it's also known as the astronaut's life tower. CDTN's Wu Lei talked with the chief designer of the escape tower engine, and he has this report.
The safety of astronauts is the most important aspect of all manned missions. But what if the rocket fails during its flight period? Chinese scientists have developed an escape tower which is installed at the top of the rocket. In case of an emergency, its own engines will kick in and drag the spaceship away from danger. We are now at one of the assembly buildings at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. This is a real escape tower now standing by for the Long March 2F Y-16 rocket. It's only the main part, but the total length of this escape tower is over 8 meters. Shi Hongbin has been developing the escape tower engine system for over 20 years. He says China started to develop the escape tower back in 1992. After years of research and hundreds of ground tests, Chinese scientists conducted a comprehensive successful test launch of the escape tower and the rocket in 1998.
The escape tower starts working at an altitude of 0 to 39 kilometers and between 0 to 120 seconds after the launch. It has a main escape engine, a separate engine, and 4 engines in the control system. So the entire escape tower has 6 engines.
The current escape tower has been quite stable over the past 20 years. As China is developing its next generation rockets for manned lunar missions, more advanced escape towers are also on the way.
We are now upgrading the escape tower. The new tower will be stronger as the new spaceship is larger. So we will use a variable thrust engine to make the escape system more reliable and safe.
China sent its first astronaut Yang Liwei into space in 2003. And since then, Shi Hongbin and his team have been in Jiuquan helping guarantee the life support system of astronauts during each manned mission.
It is a matter of astronauts' life during the mission. It's better if they don't ever need to use our escape tower, but if they do, they will get the service of the highest standard.
China's space station will be fully completed by the end of 2022 and will host more astronauts, scientists, and engineers. The escape tower will continuously play a key role in manned space missions and deep space exploration. Wu Lei, CGTN, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
We're now about 8 minutes until liftoff. I'm now joined in the studio by Professor Yang Yuguang. Professor, talk to us about what's happening in those last minutes. Just now, we saw some minibuses pull over, so the evacuation of ground staff obviously happened already.
You may notice, although all the rotational platform has already been opened, but still there are some arms, some arms in orange color, very close to the launch vehicle. In these arms, we have cables and pipes. So still, we have, as Yan-Song has already mentioned, we have the electricity provided from the launch complex to the spacecraft. And only about 1 to 2 minutes before the launch, before liftoff, we will switch the power supply from the ground to the batteries inside. So only at this moment we can unplug all these connections. And also, you know that our Long March 2F launch vehicle adopted a hyperbolic propulsion system, which means that it is in common temperature. Actually speaking, it is UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrazine, and also this as a fuel, and also nitrogen tetroxide as the oxidizer. This is very convenient for use because it is in common temperature. Oh, we can see the camera inside the re-entry capsule. We can see the 3 astronauts.
They've been waiting inside the cabin for over an hour.
Yes, it's already near the T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
They do seem very ready, very calm until that happens.
So you can see, as I've already mentioned, their seats are specially designed, and with this shape of the seats, they can afford a very great impact. And also, this will be the most comfortable position during the liftoff and the landing.
Because after all, they're going to be there literally for hours, you know, between the waiting time and then the liftoff and the docking and the rendezvous.
The waiting time is not a big deal, but you know that during the 10 minutes of the liftoff and also during the landing, there will be G forces about 3 to 4 times greater than our ordinary gravity. So that will be a great challenge, not very comfortable for them. And also, during this process, there are also intensive vibration. So they must have, you know, that during the first flight of Mr. Yang Liwei, the vibration is even more intensive, and he even thinks that he will lose his life. So we optimized our the flight procedure, and in the Shenzhou 6 mission experienced by Mr. Fei Junlong, it is much more comfortable.
T-minus 5 minutes. We're waiting and watching, monitoring the liftoff of the Long March 2F carrier rocket, which will send 3 Chinese astronauts into space. This is the last manned mission before the construction of China's own space station, the Tiangong.
And the next step will be the switching of the control from the ground to the onboard computer. The onboard computer will be in charge of the whole launch vehicle next.
A nerve-wracking last few minutes until we see the ignition and then the liftoff of the carrier rocket. We'll be monitoring the whole 600 seconds, I believe, the initial 10 minutes after liftoff.
It's about 10 minutes. You see that during this process, Mr. Fei Junlong is still reading the handbook. So he will be more and more familiar with the normal procedure and abnormal procedure.
That's the gentleman sitting in the middle. He's the commander of this mission, a veteran astronaut who flew his first manned flight 17 years ago, trained under China's first generation of astronauts. With him are his crew members. First manned flight for both of them.
Yes, and you may notice that just between the seats of astronauts, there are also several packages. Not only the packages for their mission, but also this to balance the position of the center of the mass of the re-entry capsule. It is also carefully designed.
The cargo you mentioned in orange, right? That's
exactly
in their return capsule.
Countdown in 3 minutes.
T-minus 3 minutes.
We also have cameras mounted on the rotational arms to monitoring the unplugging procedure to ensure the reliability. Still, at this moment, we believe that we still have cables connected to the launch vehicle.
Yeah, you can see the arms are still tightly around that carrier rocket.
Exactly.
When will they be retracted?
And according to your colleagues, that the wind is not so very strong. So although it is in extremely low temperature, but the wind is not strong, so it is good for the launch.
Wind speed obviously is a much bigger factor than temperature.
Quite right. It is a quite serious problem to consider.
We are literally just minutes away from the liftoff of that Long March 2F carrier rocket, which will send 3 Chinese astronauts into space. Their previous mission, the Shenzhou 14 mission, the crew members are still inside the China space station. They will be working together in the space station for a period of 5 days. So it will be the first crew in-cabin, in-station handover between 2 different crews. A historic moment indeed, which we will bring to you here on CGTN.
There are 4 engines on the first stage. The 4 engines called YF-27. Each have a thrust more than 75 tons. And also there are similar engines for each boosters. We have 1 engine. So during the liftoff, we have 8 engines. They will ignite simultaneously.
各号注意，我是领号，1分钟准备。1 minute countdown.
各号注意，
Yeah, T-minus 1 minute. Really, any moment now before we see the ignition of that carrier rocket.
And next, we will see the rotation of the arms away from the body of the rocket.
Yes.
Great, unplugged.
The arms are moving now. They are being retracted to release the carrier rocket.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Three Chinese astronauts into space.
Pitch over.
Okay, the pitch over happening about 12 seconds into the flight.
The tower is already cleared. We can see the white flames very bright in the night. The ground station reports that the tracking is normal and the status is normal. Oh, this is the camera mounted on the launch vehicle.
And we will continue to hear those tracking data that will tell us how the flight is going. We'll continue to hear them throughout the process.
So the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the emergency escape top about 2 minutes after liftoff. At this moment, we can see that this is a video mounted on the body of the maybe the second stage, and we can see 2 of the boosters and their flames. And you can see the cabin inside the re-entry capsule, and the 3 astronauts are in very good status. We cannot see the vibration because the camera is vibrating together with the cabin.
That's right. The 3 taikonauts do seem to be in a good state.
And each of the booster have a rocket engine with a thrust about 75 tons. And when it is reached the supersonic status, it will experience the largest aerodynamic forces called the Mach Q. So after this moment, it will be supersonic and will be safer and safer. Oh, great! The jettisoning of the emergency escape tower.
The escape towers have come off. This is 2 minutes into the flight.
Exactly. And then will be the separation of the 4 boosters.
We're monitoring to see the 4 boosters coming off. I mean, you know, the taikonauts do seem to be doing fine, but this is the part where they feel a lot of discomfort, and as you can see, the boosters are coming off.
You can see a cross of the 4 boosters. And the first stage has already been separated.
And the first stage of the carrier rocket.
And the second stage will work much longer than the first stage. It has 1 main engine. It is a vacuum version of the first stage engine. It is similar, but with a large nozzle. And also, the second stage have 4 vernier engines with smaller thrust, but they are rotatable. We can see on the left of screen is the camera mounted on the launch vehicle. This one is the camera inside the payload fairing.
The taikonauts are flipping through their manuals again. They seem to be really fine.
Great.
Something else.
The payload fairing is separated.
That's the payload fairing. The payload fairing is what protects the spacecraft.
Yes. You can see the beautiful flames of the launch vehicle.
What do you make of the taikonauts at this point? I mean, the fact that they're flipping through their manual seems to suggest they're doing
they are just
very well.
Reading the parameters on the control panel and to judge whether anything goes right. The ground staff reports that the tracking is normal.
What are we looking at now, Professor?
This is a video captured by the ground station. It is an optical camera.
Okay. So the tracking units are, some of them are from stationary units, others are from ships that moved into position prior to the launch of the mission.
So along the downrange trajectory, we have multiple ground stations, including those with the telescopes or optical telescopes to take videos like this. And also we have the readers. We have the readers to monitoring the. Oh, we can see on the left is the camera mounted on the rear part of the second stage. So it is monitoring the working of the rocket engines.
And the main engine of the second stage will shut down as we go further into the flight. Is that what's going to happen next?
Exactly. So I've already been discussed that the payload fairing has already been separated. So the next critical step will be shutdown of the main engine. But at this moment, theoretically speaking, it is already in orbit, but maybe not accurate enough. So we will use the 4 vernier engines, the 4 smaller engines, to adjust its trajectory.
Got it.
So another ground station reports that the status is normal. The Shenzhou ground station reports that it is normal.
I mean, we've done this so many times, but it just doesn't get less nervous for all of us watching on Earth here.
Yes, we just heard the voice that Qingdao has already captured the vehicle. It is already close to Qingdao. And the separation of the spacecraft and the launch vehicle will be in the to the east of the China's sea coast.
I mean, Qingdao is on China's east coast. The carrier rocket lifted off from the northwest of China.
Yes.
In a few minutes' time, it moved from northwest of China to the east coast of the country.
And before the end of the working of the rocket, the altitude will be about 200 kilometers.
Have they passed the period where they feel most discomfort now? I mean, for the taikonauts?
Exactly. You see that the most inconvenient part is during the flight of the first stage, because you know that because of the aerodynamic forces, there are many intensive vibration. But at this moment, you know that they've already in a vacuum condition. The payload fairing has already separated. Another ground station reports that the USB and also the another data link is normal.
I wonder what you're thinking right now, especially for Mr. Deng, who waited so long, over 2 decades for this time. It's finally happening, a dream come true for him.
Great. Main engine has shut down.
Shutting down.
It's already in orbit, but maybe not accurate enough. So the 4 vernier engine will adjust its trajectory precisely. And we can see on the top right of the screen is the camera, an infrared camera, taking the videos of the vehicle.
And if all things go well, we're looking at the separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket, which will happen any minute now.
You can see the 3 crew members are very relaxed now.
Smiles on their faces.
Exactly.
As they have passed that most difficult period of time. A big relief, I would imagine, for all 3 of them.
As I emphasized, actually speaking, they've already in orbit.
But they're now adjusting
the accuracy
of the trajectory.
Yes. So the next step will be the shutdown of the 4 vernier engines.
As we mentioned, the main engine was shut down just a few moments ago.
You know, that's the engine during the liftoff, the thrust is 75 tons. But you know, that's the second stage, although it uses the same type of engine, but it is a vacuum version. And the thrust is bigger because it is vacuum condition. Changjiang 6 means Yuanwang 6 space tracking ship in the Pacific Ocean. So it is already gets the data
They have
link.
now identified the object.
Exactly.
Where is this camera? This is
a camera mounted on the top of the launch vehicle towards the spacecraft, to the front.
Okay, that is the successful separation of a spacecraft from the carrier rocket. You hear a round of applause from ground control because this is a critical step indicating initial success of the flight.
And what we see now is the 3D animation in the flight control center. We should emphasize that this 3D animation is driven by the real data received from the telemetry data.
So it's a real-time update, 3D animation indicating
the position, the velocity, the attitude of the vehicle is real status.
Right.
And I should also emphasize they've already in zero gravity.
Is that a pen floating around in the capsule?
Yes, quite right. But you know, with China, usually we don't have the tradition to have a zero-G indicator. Usually our astronauts use their pen to demonstrate this zero-G.
We're now 6 minutes into the flight, and the separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket has happened, indicating initial success of the flight.
Let's remember this moment. Just now, with the separation of the second stage, with China, we've already have 6 astronauts in orbit.
6 astronauts in orbit now. They will meet and greet in just a handful of hours. We will bring you special coverage on that as well. One thing to be sure is that the Shenzhou 15 crew will be very warmly welcomed by their Shenzhou 14 colleagues.
We heard the voice of the Yuanwang 6 or the Changjiang 6, the space tracking ship. The tracking is normal. And the next step will be the unfolding of the solar panels mounted on the propulsion module. The Shenzhou spaceship adopted a 3-module design. On the rear part is the propulsion module, which has 2 solar wings. The Beijing Flight Control Center has sent the command to unfolding the panel. Tianlu means Tianlian data relay satellite.
It takes a minute between the sending of the command and then the opening of the panels.
Yes. Great.
The solar panel has unfolded and opened, prompting another applause from nervous ground staff watching every step of the flight. I mean, this is another crucial step indicating that things have gone well. And would you say that the spaceship is now pretty much in orbit, or is it still adjusting?
It's already in a right orbit. The next step, we will, based on the telemetry data, we will measure or determine the orbit and evaluate each parameter to evaluate whether to judge it is accurate enough. And only when it is accurate enough can we announce that it is a successful launch. Because that's the purpose of this launch. This spacecraft is to rendezvous and dock with the Tiangong space station. So the orbit must be accurate enough.
Professor, remind us again how much time it will take before the docking and rendezvous happens?
Well, it depends on the arrangement of the plan. That just several days before we conducted the Tianzhou 5 mission, and it only used 2 hours.
2 hours?
Yes, that makes the world record.
But that was unmanned cargo spacecraft. This is different.
But the technology is similar.
But it can't be done in 2 hours.
Yes, but maybe not necessary. That 6 hours is already short enough. So it depends on the arrangement.
We're now, of course, waiting to hear from official announcement from Ground Command and Control to see whether the launch and flight so far has been a success. There will be an official announcement. We're waiting for that to happen as well.
They are feeling well.
The taikonauts have just told ground control that they are feeling well, and they've been told that they can open the face windows. Is that what's going to happen?
It depends on their, that they will check every status of the spacecraft, and they will, as you mentioned, they will open their face window of their helmet sooner or later.
Let's see if we can get a visual on them. They've already done that, right?
Great. Because the most dangerous part has already been passed.
Wonderful. That's always good to know.
As we've already discussed, the IVA spacesuit they were wearing is to protect them. Changjiang 6号 means Yuanwang 6 space tracking ship.
Yeah, that's the flight time on your screen right now, 956 seconds into the flight. The latest critical step has been the opening of the solar panels.
So next, the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft will conduct a rendezvous, maybe several orbit maneuvers to meet with the Tiangong space station.
Is it possible for the Shenzhou 14 crew to watch this happen from the space station? Is it technologically possible?
Technically speaking, it is possible. But it also depends on the plan. You know that, as we've already discussed, if the rendezvous, the time interval is short enough, they can see the launch. This already has happened in the International Space Station. You may watch it on the social media, the video taken by the astronauts on board the ISS of the launch of the Soyuz spacecraft or the progress.
根据北京实时轨道与遥测数据监视判断，神舟15号飞船已进入近地点高度200公里，远地点高度361.9公里，倾角41.3度，周期1小时30分钟的预定轨道。飞船座舱环境正常，航天员状态良好。北京出轨根数及分离点参数已向各方向发出。东风。
东风收到。
华山。
华山收到。
江阴。
江阴收到。
长江6号。
长江6号收到。
Ground control has just reported that things are going well with the flight. The taikonauts are doing fine in their cabin, in their capsule. All indicators point to a successful launch and a successful flight.
The Flight Control Center, the commander reported the orbital parameters of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. You may notice that the perigee or the lowest altitude is 200 kilometers, but the highest point or the apogee is 361 kilometers, lower than our Tiangong space station. This is because you know that the Shenzhou 15 is a chasing vehicle. It should be lower than the target. With lower orbit, it rotates faster. So it is chasing the Tiangong space station closer and closer.
If only we could see that process as well. That would be fascinating to watch.
Exactly. And just now, the Tianlu or the Tianlian data relay satellite just reports the data link is normal. So we can have a continuous coverage establishing the data link between the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft with the ground stations. And on the front of the 3D animation, just at the front of our orbital module, you may notice that there is a docking mechanism. This is called the APAS, or the Androgynous Peripheral Attach System. And other countries also adopt this system.
This is the port that will be docking with the Tiangong?
Yes. So in the future, if we want to have some international cooperation of higher level, I mean the visit of the foreign spacecraft, either a crewed spaceship or a cargo spaceship, technically speaking, it is also possible.
So it's compatible, like it's potentially compatible.
Potentially possible. There are many technical details.
I was going to ask you about international cooperation, because with the International Space Station, we've seen very close and lasting cooperation between astronauts from different countries. China hasn't ruled out that possibility. What does international cooperation on China's own space station look like for you, Professor?
According to the announcements of China Manned Space Agency, the 9 experiments raised by 17 countries, they've already been chosen, and the devices and also other equipments for these kind of experiments has already been made by other countries. And next year, our crew on board our Tiangong space station will conducting these experiments. So this is the first cooperation with other countries of Tiangong space station. And these experiments were chosen by the China Manned Agency and UNOSA, or United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. So this is the start of our cooperation with other countries. But this is the lowest level.
Foreign proposed experiments conducted by Chinese astronauts actually in the space station.
So the next level will be the visit of the foreign crew.
How soon could that happen, Professor?
Will be, I believe they will happen maybe within the next several years.
Okay, next several years, because obviously you're going to have to syndicate training.
Exactly.
You're going to have to.
And also the foreign astronauts should learn Chinese.
I believe they will. But our astronauts speak a fair amount of English, I would suppose.
During an international flight mission, maybe probably they will learn English. But Mr. Ye Guangfu can speak English very well.
Because he trained abroad in Italy, was it?
In Europe for a cave diving, exploration training. And Miss Savancha Cristoforetti, with Chinese name Shasha, and also Mr. Martin Moria, was also Miss Chinese name Ma Tian, was trained in in Yantai during the rescue training. You can see this is a two-dimensional animation in the flight control center. So we can see the red point is the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft.
What is happening at this point, Professor? I mean, the ground control needs some verification of this being a complete success. What are they looking at? This further
you may notice at this moment the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft, according to this two-dimensional demonstration, it is just beneath the Tianlian 104 satellite. So just we heard the voice that the Tianlian has just set up the normal data link between the satellite, the data relay satellite, and the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. So all these communications will confirm the real status of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft, and also as we were seeing that they are evaluating the accuracy of its orbital parameters. And when we judge that it is already accurate enough, the commander of the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center will announce the success, and we can see the big red screens.
So it's an ongoing process. You need a multitude of indicators that are constantly sending you the signal, the message indicating success.
Yeah. We measure the accuracy of the orbital parameters with multiple sensors. We have the inertial measurement units on board our Shenzhou 15. We also have our Beidou navigation satellite receiver. And also we have the other measures to measure the velocity position of our Shenzhou 15. Mr. Deng Qingming has fulfilled his 25 years of dream to go to outer space.
That is incredible. This must be an very memorable night for him and his family. I wonder if it's the same as he imagined this would be, because he was the backup a lot of the times. And when he watched his colleagues lift off, and now he's experienced it himself, I wonder what's
just
going
before this
through
mission,
his mind
Mr.
right
Deng
now.
Qingming has already become a grandfather, and her daughter is our colleagues.
Yes, her daughter became, followed in the footsteps of her father, essentially.
So I believe next the commander will announce the success of the mission. I've also been to this hall in the flight control center. You may notice that there is a computer, there is a screen in front of everybody, and you can read each of the parameter from this screen.
When was that? When was that trip? When was that?
In 2019.
A full room of ground control and command staff nervously watching the flight so far. Everything seems to have gone really well.
Yeah.
We're waiting for some last-minute verification before the officials
yes,
announce their assessment of the flight.
The verification of the accuracy of the orbital parameters.
I mean, the accuracy, as Professor Yang explained, is everything in determining the success of the docking and the rendezvous, because this is constantly chasing the Tiangong space station.
And if everything is normal, next, the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft will conduct. Great, the Tianlian data rate link has already been established. And it will switch to a autonomous rendezvous mode. So the Shenzhou 15 will conduct the orbit maneuver based on its own.
What will the Tianlian satellite do once the docking and rendezvous happens? Will it still be in use?
Quite right. You know that we have the communication link between the Tianlian not only with Shenzhou 15 but also with the Tiangong space station and the. Okay, the thrusters will be tested. So the ground station, the ground commander remind the astronauts to keep their safe belt fastened. You know, there are a lot of rocket engines on the propulsion module, so they must test these kind of engines. We have 4 main engines in the propulsion module. Each have a thrust of 2,500 Newton. And we also have other engines for the attitude control and also translation. They will control the attitude in pitch, yaw, and roll direction, and also have the translation engines to move the spacecraft to front, back, left, right, up, and down. So these are very necessary requirements to the rendezvous and the docking with the space station. So these engines are so critical for the rendezvous and docking procedure. So that is the reason why the commander will ask to test these engines and remind the astronauts to fasten their seat belt.
They're laser focused on those manuals again. I just love it when they move their legs around a little bit, indicating that they're relaxed, they're in a good state. Now that they've passed the most uncomfortable period into the flight.
You can see on the left screen is a camera mounted on the Shenzhou spacecraft, and you can see the bright curve is the horizon of the Earth. It is so beautiful.
That is beautiful. And a lot of first-comers like to snap a picture of the Earth and videos, of course. So we can expect some artworks, photography works from the 2 newcomers.
You may notice either the camera mounted outside and the camera mounted inside the cabin. We have the very high resolution and very high quality videos. So that is not easy for transmitting all these videos back to the ground station. So this is a high technology. Oh, we can already see the sun. This is a sunrise in orbit.
I mean, these cameras are absolutely important, allowing us to see a real-time process of the flight, and what it captures really reassures us why we're doing this, just to unravel the mysteries of the universe and to broaden our horizons quite literally. with man's continuous exploration of the space.
Exactly. So you can see that the astronauts are still reading the manual.
我是北京。根据北京实时遥测数据监视判断，飞船太阳帆板工况正常，按3圈自主原导实施交会对接，后续工作按正常计划实施。
Please proceed as
神舟15
the
号。
plan.
So ground staff has just
Shenzhou 15 copy.
informed Shenzhou 15 crew
copy.
that the spacecraft is doing well, that the panels have opened and are doing well, and things can proceed according to the plan. An automated rendezvous, as Professor Yang was talking about just now.
And based on the information by the ground control center, they will conduct a 3-orbit rendezvous, which means that they will use about 4.5 hours to be closer to the space station.
Authorities at the Jiuquan Launch Center about to declare their assessment of the launch. Let's listen together.
Leaders, comrades, according to the flight data and report from Beijing Aerospace Control Center, Long March 2 FY-15 carrier rocket has sent Shenzhou 15 manned spaceship to the preset orbit. The solar panel has unfolded successfully and is functioning well. Now I declare the launch of Shenzhou 15 manned mission a complete success. Thank you.
The message we were all waiting to hear, a complete success declared of the Shenzhou 15 launch and initial flight.
You can see the big red screen, our tradition.
The big red screen is what we always wanted to see.
When the success is confirmed.
Another beautiful and successful launch of the Shenzhou 15 manned mission into space. We'll keep monitoring what happens there. China's Shenzhou 15 manned spaceflight mission launched Tuesday night from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China's Gobi Desert. Our reporter Zheng Yibing spoke to an expert about the mission and has this report.
Shenzhou 15 is China's 6th manned mission this year and the last one in the construction phase of China's space station. It has the same design as Shenzhou 12, 13, and 14, which were launched consecutively in the past 1.5 years.
Shenzhou 15 spacecraft will send 3 taikonauts to the space station to replace the crew of Shenzhou 14. We have created an identification method for their telecontrol codes, so we will know who the transmitter or the receiver is.
Besides regular material supplies, the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft also has new payloads.
We have a nematode payload that will be used to find out about the effect of space radiation on molecular mechanisms. We also have a planned payload to research growth in microgravity.
Xiao says they've made necessary precautions to protect the spacecraft from low temperatures in recent days.
The capsule has an automatic temperature control system that keeps the temperature above 20 degrees Celsius so that the taikonauts are in a comfortable environment.
Shenzhou 15 spaceship will expand China's space station to its largest configuration with 3 modules and 3 spaceships, having a total mass of nearly 100 tons. As for the return of Shenzhou 14, Xiao says the procedure remains the same as Shenzhou 13.
After its separation from the space station, Shenzhou 14 will leave the orbit, enter the atmosphere, and open its parachutes when it's about 10 kilometers above the ground.
Xiao says everybody is working diligently and carefully to ensure a successful mission. Zheng Yibing, CGTN, Jiuquan.
And that is all from all of us here at CGTN, along with my guest, Professor Yang Yuguan of the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. Thank you so much for joining us and for your company on our special coverage. We'll leave you now with a quick look back at some of the key moments from today's launch.
That's the way being is.